February, the hype, the hotness, and a little bit of the hold it, because a little bit of everything all at once is, a little bit what we need in this hobby at times. So let's go through everything that's on my radar. News, noteworthy, hotness, hype, and a little bit of everything else that, I find interesting on a news basis and the hobby. Let's do this. First up, because it just got announced, because everyone's hyping on it, because everyone's pre-ordering it, it's Stonemaier Games and Expeditions. This is a sequel standalone in the realm of Scythe, with the same artwork, with the same artist, but a completely different playstyle than Scythe, which is going to be a relief, or also maybe not something you're interested in, depending on which side of the aisle you fall in that regard. So what we're getting right now with Expeditions is we are getting a little bit of everything. We're getting some tile placement. We're getting some pre-orders. We're getting some miniatures. You can get the metal coins if you want to get the deluxeified version, but it's going to cost you $100 right now to pre-order from Stonemaier. However, I've already noticed that a few other shops, retail-wise, are picking it up, either from the deluxe side of things, or even the retail version from Stonemaier is going to cost you about $60, which it's only about mid-50s from some of those online distributors. And so what you're getting with Expeditions is you're getting a new adventure into this, post-apocalyptic Siberia. Massive meteorite crashes down, and you're an expedition leader going in there trying to study its impact on the land. And competitive, okay? Card driven, okay? Engine building, okay? Playing cards gain powers, worker abilities, and mysterious locations that are going to enhance your mechs. And then useful items and quests along the way, basically to score the most at the end with some sort of deck building management. Okay, I'm intrigued. Multi-use cards with a core value, as well as guile and corruption management, hand and worker management, and quest cards. Workers or resources. I mean, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot to unpack. And I'd be lying if I'd said to you that it's not on my radar in terms of my watch list and my wish list, because I'm always interested in new things that are going in a little bit different direction. I mean, Red Rising is a very good example of that. Some people absolutely love that game, and some people absolutely cannot stand it whatsoever. And it was a very interesting play to kind of see where I fell. And this is another one for me that I love to see, because I was not a big fan of Scythe, but I'm not going to hold it against this in order to see why it's, sort of getting the hype and the hotness from that aspect of things, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, not a bad thing whatsoever. The other big one, getting all the hype and the hotness coming slowly to retail, and that's slowly getting released right now, is the latest from Splotter, and that is Horseless Carriage, the makers of Food Chain Magnet, obviously, with this heavy worker placement, resource management style game, over a 4 on Board Game Geek, massive table hogger, and just, looks like it was a print and play at home done with production values. And that's kind of what it is. And that's kind of the appeal, I guess, what some people like. And again, nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't mind me some abstracts at all, but if you're going to pay $100 for a game, I'd like it to look like a little bit more than often what they do. I don't need a ton of graphical design. Give me something more than just cubes and pieces of paper, though. That's my issue. I'm being facetious, folks. I just don't know. It's a 3 to 5 player game, which also makes it slightly different in terms of needing more players. And I guess the question is, can you play it in under 4 hours? Because that's what the playtime is listed for, 3 to 4 hours. I have no hope or ever interest in any of Splotter games right now, so I'm completely okay with that. The only one I even tried to get was Great Zimbabwe, and the rulebook for Great Zimbabwe is a mess, and so I sold it. There you go. Right? But it's on the hotness. People are getting it. People are receiving it, trickling slowly out there. But, it's going to have a super high selection bias as well, because most of the time the people that buy games like this are not going to, just like a lot of the Kickstarter games, right? Just like a lot of the deluxe edition games, right? Like, there's not a lot of people that are going to use this as their intro game. And so, take that for what you will. The other one making its waves on the hotness right now, because I think the Dice Tower did an unboxing, this is Lofoten. And this is an archipelago up north in Europe, by where the Vikings were settling. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking merchandise from markets into your longships, bringing them back to your clan, scoring advantages depending on what you bring back paired to your opposing Jarl. And your goal is just to earn more points than the opposing one as you go up. It's an innovative, it says, card hand mechanic and rotating board. So rotating board, I'm intrigued by. So we'll see what it does. It's not super expensive. It's not super heavy. It's mid-2s right now, especially at the 40 to 45 minute length. Now, the tricky part is, again, just like Horseless Carriage, it's only going to be a 2-player game, in the sense that, are you really going to have enough room for a solely 2-player game? So there you go. Interesting look-see, though. Now, this one I give a lot of kudos for. This is from Jim over at Devious Weasel Games, and he was one of the first guys to ever send me a review copy of the game, and it's still in my collection. It was one of my top 10 games of 2021, and this was Cosmic freaking frog. However, we're getting an expansion later in the year, and so it's making some waves, it's making some hotness, and it's got a very, very clever name that I absolutely adore. I'll give you a few seconds in the comment section to figure it out. It's Cosmic Frog Find Muck. Find Muck. Right? Because what you're doing is you're adding psionics into this god-faring, frog, cosmic spanning, overpowered mental game of gullet purging, and just a lot of take that, and you're giving them the ability to have like telekinesis and mind messing with other people, right? Oh gosh, I love this. Now, if you want to, they're also offering a dice-based system as well as the new chip-based system that's going to be in case you don't want to roll dice. So if you're one of those people who's anti-dice and wants more strategy there you go. But this is on my wish list for a reason. Devious Weasel Games, keep doing your thing. Now we're going back and we're going to have a little compare contrast here. Are you team Dwellings? Are you team Andromeda? It's going to go the whole rest of the month, folks. Which side are you on? Are you fantasy? Are you sci-fi? Are you already established? Are you wanting a little bit of potential refinement versus too much refinement? That's going to be the question as Andromeda's Edge and the campaign for that slowly trickles on. It's over $1 million. And so we're going to see where things end up, but both are on the hotness right now for those reasons. Are you going to be getting it all? And frankly speaking, like I mentioned in the other video the other day, is it really worth all of it? Do you really need all of it? And I think the honest answer is no. And I wish they had a gameplay all in. The deluxe level is very vague on what it is. It's like deluxeifications with stretch goals, but and maybe not like the modular stuff. And you know, you have to add the other stuff separate. And if you were a newsletter follower, and if you were a pre-campaign follower, and if you did a puzzle, you all get bonuses there. Or if you get the all in, you get like discounted shipping. So like, how do you want to splice it? But the question is, you know, do you really want to spend $200 when you can probably get it for about 100 with all of the stuff? Especially if you did those three things like I mentioned, you can probably get most of the gameplay for closer to $100 with less of the deluxeifications. And if you're like me, that's tempting because you're talking half the price point, so I can go waste it on Marvel United Multiverse. Waste it anyway. You know what? I'm speaking for myself here. Speaking for myself solely. I never speak for anybody else. Ravensburger's back at it though. Now we have another game from them in the line of the Marvel and the Villainesses, and you're getting another Marvel Villainous expansion in case that wasn't totally clear. But they're playing a little bit on the hotness as well, timing-wise, because with the release of Ant-Man, they have Kang the Conqueror as one of the villains you can play as well as Dr. Octopus and Titania. So if you want that, you're going to have 5 schemes that you're going to have to be able to do to outplay and outdo your opponents in the Twisted Ambitions expansion. And so we'll see. I mean, this is people who like it, people who really like it, really like it. People who really like it, but none of these different iterations has necessarily changed people's minds if you're not a big fan of the system that you have, sort of the solitaire, multiplayer solitaire game setup with some take that potentially on which one you're playing. And we still haven't seen any more Star Wars news from the Star Wars Villainous, so I'd prefer personally a little bit of that. But, you know, there you go. We have a couple other games that have on your radar as well. The Hoplomachuses from Chip Theory Games, the remastered version, as well as Victorum, are both being delivered currently. So if you're going to see that pop up in the hotness as well, Victorum being the strictly solo version, the remastered version being an iteration, a 2.0 version of their previous line of Hoplomachus, which essentially, from what I've read in the comment section, makes the old stuff, you know, if you had to pick one or the other, you're going to pick the new remastered version, and you can buy them or pre-order them on their website, which are going to be delivered as soon as the other stuff gets delivered as well. So they give it to their backers first, and then they'll do the pre-orders. And I think remastered is going for about $130 right now. I don't know the price of Victorum. I think it's closer to $200 if you're getting everything. So that'll be popping up. You'll definitely see that make some waves on the hotness and the hype in the near future. The other thing on the other side of things is the recent announcement or the recent delivery of, you know, people's games like me from Queen Games finally getting some of their stuff in Feld collections from 2.5 years ago, literally 2 years, 4 months, and 27 days. Not that I'm counting or anything from that standpoint, but they've also announced games 5 and 6. So basically, they're just going to go do all of the Felds over again. So in case you have Felds and you're a Feld completionist, you're in trouble. But in case you're not a Feld completionist, there's 2 new games that you should at least have on your radar. It only has about 500 people following on the Kickstarter preview page right now, which you know, they're kind of you know, having less and less hype each time it comes around. But we'll see with these new ones, because the first 2 that they really did were the ones by far and away that really people wanted for and clamored for the most hype and the most reprint because they're out of print. But now we're seeing Vienna and Cuzco. Vienna being a reimplementation of La Isla, and Cuzco being a reimplementation of Bora Bora. Do either of these games actually need reimplementations? Like, that's the other question, right? Like, the main reason that you did like 3 of them at the beginning of the 4 collections was that one was new, and then the other 3 were like all redone versions of things that were out of print or licensed licensing issues or whatever it was, right? Now you're just redoing games for the sake of redoing them. I'm looking at like you, Bezier Games, who is doing like Castles of the Mad King Ludwig, and I'm looking at you, Awakened Realms, who's doing Castles of Burgundy. Like those games don't need redos. These games don't need redos. I guess maybe they do. I don't know. Take it for what you will, but there you go. How do you feel about that, right? The one thing I'll say, though, is Queen Games definitely jacks up the prices on the secondary market in terms of their store versus the crowdfunding campaign. And they also offer very little information during the actual crowdfunding campaign nowadays. So it makes it a really tough product to support, even though, you know, someone who wants a copy of Marrakesh right now, like myself, can't even get it. Or you're looking at Red Palace Alhambra version and you're wondering whether or not it's worth it, and you just can't tell because there wasn't enough information on the game page in the first place. So more of that would definitely help people like me. Just speaking from my own experiences, at least, again. The other one that has been on my radar for a long time, and I'm going to pick up a copy of it, it's just a matter of when, is Stationfall from Ion Game Design. This is the one that I sort of regret not backing. This is one of the few games on crowdfunding that I looked at and I said, I would love this game, and I just can't pay the price point for the extra miniatures and the deluxeifications that are going with it as a heavier social deduction game taken to the nth degree. And I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic game, and it's being delivered to backers right now. I still am, you know, a little concerned about whether or not I want a copy or, you know, that's going to be as deluxeified with some of the miniatures, but I'm looking at it. I've even looked on Ion Game Design's website, and so it's going to be just something very interesting. It's just doing something completely different from a heavier deduction side of things, with Battlestar Galactic as more of a social deduction game, with you're trying to escape an exploding platform and trying to be the last one standing at the same time. So I'm super intrigued by this one. I think it's going to be making a lot of waves and a lot of hype, and it's going to be a lot of interest for a lot of people. So I wanted to bring it to your radar in case you're like me and had your eye on it previously but have forgotten about it. A couple of expansions of note here. Caverna is getting a new expansion called the Frantic Fiends, which having orcs that are going to be plundering your way into your caves. It's the second big box expansion for Caverna, the Cave Farmers, where you can either use your axes to teach them a lesson or build traps to keep them away. So how do you feel about that? The other one that's going up is Seven Wonders, the second edition Edifices, which is a remake of Babel, where you're basically having buildings that you're going to be cooperatively trying to build, and you don't have to participate, but if you do, you get a bonus. If you don't participate, well, no, it doesn't harm you, but if you don't participate and it doesn't get built, then you get a penalty. And so Babel is not thought of as one of the better expansions, I think, for Seven Wonders originally, and so we'll see if this expansion really does add a little bit more. It's coming with 2 wonders additionally that can be used not only with the Edifice expansion, but also one of them just with the base game alone. Last up, we have Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic. Last up, we have Deep Rock Galactic. That is also going to be delivering shortly here in the near future in terms of crowdfunding campaigns. I believe it is in the process of doing so. And so for another spacefaring cooperative video game port over to the tabletop, we're going to see what it entails and if it holds up and if people are as hyped about it and if it's one of the better video game re-implementations that we've seen in the last year or two, because gosh knows, you know that there are more coming, and it's just a question of which ones, when, and how much are they going to cost you, because they all seem to be miniature based. Take that for what you will. Now, 2 pieces of news and noteworthy that aren't completely game related. Funagain is closing. Funagain, the distributor, is closing shops in terms of some of the distribution that they've done for a lot of big crowdfunding projects. So that's going to have ripple down effects, and that's going to have some implications. I know that plenty of people have used them in the past to mixed results, but I think most people have been relatively pleased by them. But we'll see. I mean, I don't really know what this does to the rest of the things like QML, and how if that's going to make them over busy, or if that's going to slow things down there because they're getting an influx, or, you know, we just had R&R with Queen, which was another interesting one from that aspect of things. So I have no idea what this actually means, but it's news and noteworthy because it's definitely going to have some ramifications. And then we also have Hasbro and Renegade Studios cooperating because they just picked up, they picked up Acquire, which is a very well-known, which is a 2 to 6 player game, originally known from Avalon Hill, all the way back from 1964, is the essential business, economic, stock-taking type of game. Which has then seen, dozen or so plus iterations over the years. And I know it's been out of print, or at least the one that people prefer in terms of the iterations. It's been very hard to get and going for quite a press in the secondary market for quite some time. And so we're going to see what Renegade Studios does with this, whether this is going to be a retail release or they're going to go more the crowdfunding. We've seen both from them in the past couple years. So pick a coin up and flip it and see where it lands. As a side note here, one last point of interest, because I saw this and I wanted to bring it up, and it's probably a whole separate video in and of itself for the 37 people of you that are watching at this point. But I ran across a Kickstarter that was recently delivered, and I'm not picking them or singling them out by any reasons, because I think this looks like a solid game, and it's gotten a lot of hype on the pre-crowdfunding campaign side of things as well, but it's just being delivered, and this is Oros. Oros, it was a deluxe sort of tile laying worker placement, like Euro style game, right? With these moving tiles and the exploration and the volcano erupting and that sort of thing. And so I looked back on it, and you know, the crowdfunding campaign, people were selling it for, interestingly enough, around the same price with the deluxeifications. And the deluxeified version of it was $75 for the collector's edition. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, people weren't selling it for like scalped up, you know, considerably higher than, you know, 75, 80 bucks. Okay, I was like, oh, that's not too bad. Maybe I should think about picking up a copy, right? And then I went over to the campaign page, you know, I checked it out and looked at it a little more, and I noticed that the standard edition was $50. $50, right? And again, no big deal, $50 plus minus shipping, so okay, whatever. And then I got an email the other day from like Board Game Bliss, which is one of the Canadian board game stores. I'm subscribed to a few of those, right? Like I just, anyway, that's a side note. Squirrel. Anyway, so what was so intriguing about this though, was I saw that Oros was listed on their email already, the retail version. Now it has since changed since the initial email version, but it was very interesting because I looked at that price and I said, what? Because initially when you get those emails, like if you're in America like I am, you think of everything in US dollars. But again, I know I'm saying I don't anymore. But I looked at that and they said Canadian dollars, right? Okay, so it was 38 Canadian dollars, 38.21 to be precise, because I don't know, my mind works well with numbers. But I looked at that and I said, is that right? What? That's what caught my eye, right? Because if you're like me and you go and you look across like various buying and selling groups and Board Game Geek, and you get an idea of what the prices are. When you look at someone's prices, you have a general idea of, okay, are these all actually well priced or are they not well priced? Because sometimes you can pick out one or two items and no, right? Anyway, whole nother video. But what I looked at and I said, okay, 38.21, that seems insanely low, right? Because that's only $26.50 US. That's a retail version on the crowdfunding campaign, sold for $50 plus shipping. This is me picking up at Board Game Bliss, plus maybe like 8 to 10 to 12 at most shipping. And which means I'm getting it for under $40 shipped, including the shipping. Not even if you know, not even if I go to the extreme and I make sure that I hit the shipping threshold of like $100 US or so, right? And then I'm actually going to only pay the 26, which is insane. Which made me think on a whole nother note, like how many of these games are coming at that much of a retail discount? Like, I mean, you know, you hear me talk about the crowdfunding, right? Like it's toss up, right? Shipping plus or minus, expansion plus or minus, but I mean, that's not insignificant when we talk about that. I mean, that's $28 US, and so $28 is not insignificant. Like $28 shipped, if you know I pay additional max of like 12, which it usually hasn't been from Board Game Bliss, I mean I'm still talking $40. I'm still talking under the price point with the shipping included versus the crowdfunding price for the retail by $10. And if you actually hit the shipping threshold for Board Game Bliss, I forget what it is offhand, but I mean you could be talking potentially, I mean yes, buying more, you're not saving more, but you know what I'm saying, there's always things on your wish list that you're looking at, again a whole nother video, but that's $28 versus, you know, potentially something like 62. That is not trivial. A minor expansion or for promos does not mean over double the cost. And that's my worry from the crowdfunding side of things too. How many of those are we seeing? It's not just $5 or $10. It's not just the cost of shipping one way or the other. You're looking at a vastly different price point. And now I think it's more different at the time of me filming this, but I can still find one in the US market that has Boardlandia at $34.97, which again is higher than I expected. And now when I go back and look on the Canadian websites, I mean, the lowest is 44 Canadian. So you know, that's still not much higher, and that's still about $30. And so that's not that big of difference even from a little while ago, right after it was released. Not like a year after it's already been at retail and they're struggling to sell stock, right? And that just makes me think of a couple other games I've seen like that. Merchants of the Dark Road, for example, like the deluxeified version has not held up its value. And so, you know, yes, the deluxeified version is holding up a value sometimes, but even the retail is significantly, you know. So what are we going to see happen with the evolution of the pledge levels? Anyway, side note there at the very end, random thoughts. That's what you get for watching Liege of Games news videos, the best, the most weird on the internet webs. So there you go. That's how I end it too, because I'm not editing that out. That's why I'm not even breaking 7,000. That's why I'm not even breaking 7,000 subscribers, but this is what you get. And this is why I'm also who I am. Can't mask it. Can't hide it. It just is what it is. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. Have a great day. Hopefully you like this. I love talking about board games.